There's a moment in every wealth journey that almost nobody talks about. It isn't the day you finally pay off your mortgage, and it isn't the afternoon you walk into a dealership to buy your dream car in cash. It isn't even the day you officially retire at 65 and get a gold watch from a boss you didn't really like. Instead, it's a quiet, invisible shift that happens entirely inside your own mind, completely altering how your nervous system reacts to your alarm clock going off on a Monday morning. We're conditioned from a very young age to view wealth through the lens of extreme delay and massive accumulation. The societal script tells us that we must endure decades of high-stress labor, saving exactly 15% of our income so that one day in the distant future, we can finally relax. We put our heads down, swallow our daily frustrations, and treat our investment accounts like locked vaults. We aren't allowed to touch until our bodies are too tired to enjoy the money anyway. But compound interest does something much more profound than simply inflate your net worth over a 30-year period. When properly understood and applied, it acts as a psychological mechanism that buys you present-day peace of mind. It fundamentally decouples your basic survival from your daily labor, permanently changing the anxiety and pressure you feel when you sit down at your desk or clock in for a shift. Most people fundamentally misunderstand the purpose of investing. They view the stock market and compound growth as tools designed solely to buy luxury in their twilight years. Because of this, they miss the incredible psychological relief that compounding offers right now. They don't realize that building wealth isn't about buying a bigger house to impress people they don't even like. It's about building a wall between themselves and a world that constantly demands their time and energy. Here's the harsh truth. If your survival depends entirely on your next paycheck, your employer owns a piece of your autonomy. That Sunday night anxiety, that tightness in your chest before a stressful meeting, isn't necessarily about the actual work. It's the deeply rooted, primitive fear that if you lose this job, your entire life might collapse. You're operating in a state of constant, low-grade financial threat. But as your investments grow, money stops being a tool for merely buying things and transforms into stored energy. Every dollar you save and invest is a tiny worker you've hired to secure your future. Once you accumulate enough of these invisible workers, they begin to generate their own momentum. They don't sleep, they don't ask for raises, and they never take a day off. They just relentlessly multiply, quietly buying back your future freedom. The realization that your money is now doing the heavy lifting changes the very air you breathe. The stakes of your job lower dramatically. A bad day at the office isn't a threat to your existence anymore, it's just a mild inconvenience. An unreasonable request from a manager doesn't induce panic, it just elicits a calm, boundary-setting response. You aren't trapped because you know the math is working quietly in the background. This shift represents the ultimate goal of personal finance. We aren't trying to become billionaires, we're trying to reclaim our autonomy. We're using the mathematics of compound interest to build an unshakable foundation of security, so that going to work becomes a choice rather than a desperately needed lifeline. In this journey, we'll break down the exact mathematical milestones and mindset shifts required to reach this state of absolute mental freedom. We'll explore why the traditional path often leads to a life of quiet desperation and how you can use specific financial turning points to permanently unhook yourself from the anxiety of the daily grind. You're about to discover how money actually learns to work for you. Let me introduce you to Marcus. On paper, Marcus is the absolute picture of the American dream. He earns $250,000 a year as a vice president of sales for a mid-sized software company. If you saw him in the grocery store parking lot, you would instantly assume he has everything figured out. He wears tailored suits and carries himself with the quiet confidence of a man who has conquered his industry. Marcus drives a brand new leased luxury SUV that costs him over $1,000 a month. He lives in a 4,000 square foot home in the most prestigious subdivision in his zip code. From the outside looking in, Marcus is winning the ultimate status game. He is the person his old high school classmates look up on social media and secretly envy. But underneath the polished exterior, Marcus is barely keeping his head above water. Here is the harsh truth. Marcus is completely drowning in social debt. Every single time he earned a promotion over the last 10 years, he immediately upgraded his lifestyle to match his new title. His massive income is instantly eaten up by a massive mortgage, expensive car payments, country club dues, and credit card bills. Despite earning $250,000 a year, Marcus is effectively living paycheck to paycheck. Because of this invisible financial prison, every single Monday morning is a terrifying ordeal. When his alarm goes off at 6 in the morning, a familiar, heavy knot forms in his stomach. He is exhausted by the relentless pressure his job requires. But Marcus cannot quit. He cannot take a pay cut to find a better work-life balance. His survival requires him to keep performing at maximum capacity just to maintain the illusion of wealth. Work for Marcus is a high-stakes prison. Now, let me introduce you to Sarah. Sarah works as a graphic designer for a small marketing agency, making $65,000 a year. If you saw Sarah at the same grocery store, you probably wouldn't look twice. She drives a reliable 10-year-old sedan with a minor dent in the bumper. She rents a modest apartment and doesn't care about designer labels. By societal standards, Sarah looks completely average. But wealth is what you don't see. What you cannot see when you look at Sarah is the fact that she aggressively saved and invested a large portion of her income during her early 20s. While her peers were financing new cars and upgrading their apartments, Sarah was quietly funneling her spare dollars into low-cost index funds. By the time Sarah turned 30, she had accumulated enough invested capital to hit a powerful mathematical milestone. Even if she never invests another single penny, the compound interest on her existing portfolio will grow large enough to fully fund her retirement. She front-loaded the struggle, and now the heavy lifting is completely finished. Because her future is mathematically secure, Sarah's relationship with work is entirely different. When her alarm goes off on Monday morning, there is no panic. She knows her job is a choice, not a desperate necessity. If her workplace becomes toxic, she can quit and take a lower-paying job without ruining her future. Work for Sarah is a low-stakes game. Marcus traded his peace of mind for depreciating assets. He is wealthy in status, but bankrupt in autonomy. Sarah has an average income, but possesses the ultimate luxury. She owns her own time and her own mental bandwidth. Outward status almost always masks internal panic, while invisible wealth creates true internal peace. Real wealth is the ability to wake up in the morning and know that whatever happens at the office today, you are going to be fine. It is the invisible shield that protects your nervous system from the demands of the modern world. From the moment we enter the school system, we are conditioned to believe in the illusion of linear effort. We are taught a very simple, very dangerous equation. 1 unit of work equals 1 unit of reward. If you want more money, you must simply work more hours. If you want to be twice as rich, you have to work twice as hard. This linear mindset follows us from our first part-time job, flipping burgers, all the way into high-level corporate careers. Because we believe this linear script, we try to solve our financial problems with brute physical force. When we feel behind on our goals, we take on second jobs. We drive for ride-sharing apps on the weekends. We answer emails at midnight to secure that tiny annual bonus. We trade our precious, irreplaceable time for a fixed amount of currency, believing that sheer willpower will eventually lead us to the promised land of financial freedom. The problem with this linear trap is that human energy is incredibly finite. You cannot work 24 hours a day. You cannot clone your physical body. Eventually, your health falters, your relationships suffer, and your spirit breaks. If your only mechanism for creating wealth is your own physical labor, you are playing a game that is mathematically impossible to win over the long term. There is a hard ceiling on what you can achieve with just your own 2 hands. This is where the mathematical reality of compound interest completely destroys the societal script. The hardest part of the wealth-building journey is always the very beginning. The late billionaire Charlie Munger famously said that accumulating the first $100,000 is a nightmare, but you have to do it. even if it means walking everywhere and not eating anything that costs more than $1. Why is the first $100,000 so grueling? Because it is almost entirely fueled by your own sweat. You have no invisible workers yet. You are dragging a massive boulder up a steep hill completely by yourself. Most of the growth in your account during this phase comes from your raw savings rate, not from investment returns. It feels slow, it feels unrewarding, and this is exactly where most people give up and go finance a new car instead. Let us look at the actual numbers. If you save $10,000 a year and earn a 7% average annual return, it takes roughly 7.5 years to reach your first $100,000. That is nearly a decade of intense discipline, delayed gratification, and saying no to things you want to buy. Those first 7 years can feel like an absolute eternity. But the math doesn't lie. Once you push that boulder over the crest of that first hill, the gravity fundamentally shifts. To get from $100,000 to $200,000, assuming you keep saving that same $10,000 a year, it takes just over 5 years. The boulder is starting to roll on its own. To get from $200,000 to $300,000 takes less than 4 years. To get from $300,000 to $400,000 takes less than 3 years. By the time you are aiming for your 7th or 800,000, your money is generating far more annual growth than you are actually contributing from your paycheck. The linear equation has been completely shattered. This is the exact moment when your invisible workforce takes over. You have effectively cloned your earning power without cloning your physical body. While you are sleeping, while you are on vacation, while you are sitting in traffic, your money is out in the global economy, working tirelessly to produce more money. You have successfully transitioned from a laborer to a manager of capital. The mindset shift required here is massive. You have to stop viewing money as a currency designed to buy consumer goods and start viewing it as seeds. Every seed you eat today is gone forever, but every seed you plant grows an orchard that will feed you for the rest of your life. When you truly internalize the illusion of linear effort, you stop looking for the highest paying hourly wage and start looking for the fastest route to acquiring income-producing assets. You realize that true wealth is never about how hard you can row the boat. True wealth is about building a giant sail so the wind can do all the heavy lifting for you. The traditional financial narrative we are sold is fundamentally exhausting. From the moment we enter the workforce, financial advisors and well-meaning parents repeat the exact same mantra: you must save 10 to 15% of every single paycheck, from the day you graduate until the day you turn 65. It is framed as an endless, inescapable marathon. In this traditional model, there is no relief. Every month for 4 decades, a portion of your labor is siphoned off into an account you cannot touch. If you want to take a lower-paying job that brings you joy, you are told it is too risky because it will derail your retirement trajectory. But here is the harsh truth. The traditional model completely ignores the explosive, exponential power of front-loading your investments. This brings us to one of the most powerful and misunderstood mathematical milestones in personal finance. It is a concept known as coast-fi, or coasting financial independence. Coast-fi is the exact mathematical point where you have accumulated enough invested capital that even if you never contribute another single penny, your money will grow to fully fund your traditional retirement. It is the moment you reach the top of the mountain, put your car in neutral, and let gravity pull you the rest of the way to the finish line. Let us break down the actual mathematics so you can just how powerful this is. Imagine you determine that you need $1.2 million to retire comfortably at age 65. If you wait until you are 40 to start taking investing seriously, you will have to save aggressively, sacrificing a massive portion of your income every single month for 25 straight years. Now, imagine you decide to live well below your means in your 20s. You share an apartment, drive an old car, and aggressively invest everything you can. By the time you reach age 30, you have managed to invest $100,000 into low-cost index funds. If you leave that $100,000 completely alone, and it grows at a historical average of 8% per year, It will double roughly every 9 years. By age 39, it is $200,000. By age 48, it is $400,000. By age 57, it is $800,000. By age 66, you have over $1.6 million. The math doesn't lie. At age 30, after reaching that initial milestone, you could permanently stop saving for retirement. You could redirect every future dollar of your income toward enjoying your life right now. You could take your foot completely off the gas pedal and you would still end up a millionaire. Reaching your Coast FI number triggers an incredible psychological shift. Suddenly, the terrifying pressure of the future is completely removed from your present reality. You no longer have to endure a miserable, high-stress job just to make sure you will not be destitute in your old age. The heavy lifting is permanently finished. Because your future is secure, your current income requirements drop dramatically. You only need to earn enough money to cover your actual daily living expenses. This opens up a world of possibilities that most people cannot even fathom. You can transition to a 4-day work week or take a job that pays half as much, but fills you with purpose. Coast FI proves that the ultimate luxury is not buying a bigger house in the suburbs. The ultimate luxury is having the power to dial back your career ambition whenever you want, knowing that your invisible workforce is quietly securing your future in the background. The societal script we are handed at birth treats retirement as a biological finish line. We are taught to view the end of our working years as a fixed age, usually somewhere around 65, dictated by government pension programs and cultural norms. In this traditional framework, you are expected to trade the most vibrant decades of your life for a paycheck, simply waiting for the calendar to grant you permission to finally rest. This biological timeline is deeply ingrained in our culture. We assume that a 40-year career is the inescapable cost of being a responsible adult. But viewing retirement as an age is a fundamental misunderstanding of how wealth functions. It traps you in a mindset where you are essentially doing time, marking off the years like a prisoner waiting for parole. The mathematical reality is far more empowering. Retirement is not an age. Retirement is a financial state. It is a specific equation, and the moment you solve it, you are completely free, whether you are 35 or 65. In the world of financial independence, this exact moment is known as the crossover point. The crossover point is the mathematical intersection where your passive investment growth officially exceeds your living expenses. It is the moment your invisible workforce becomes productive enough to replace your physical labor entirely. To understand how to reach this point, we look at the 4% rule. The math doesn't lie. Historical market data shows that with a diversified portfolio of index funds, you can safely withdraw 4% of its total value every single year, adjusted for inflation, and practically never run out of money. To figure out your crossover point, you simply take your annual living expenses and multiply that number by 25. Let us break down this math slowly. Imagine you have designed a life where you are completely happy living on $40,000 a year. You don't need a mansion or luxury cars. You just need enough to cover your rent, groceries, travel, and hobbies. If your target lifestyle costs $40,000 a year, you multiply that by 25. The result is $1 million. That $1 million is your crossover point. The moment your investment portfolio hits that specific number, it will mathematically generate that $40,000 a year in passive growth indefinitely. Think about what happens at this exact intersection. If your portfolio generates roughly $3,300 a month in safe withdrawal income, and your life only costs $3,300 a month to run, you have officially bought back your entire existence. Your money is now earning more money than you actually need to survive. The mindset shift that happens when you cross this threshold is monumental. When you hit the crossover point, you don't necessarily have to quit your job. Many people choose to keep working because they enjoy their careers, but the underlying power dynamic completely flips overnight. Here's the harsh truth. Before you reach the crossover point, your employer effectively owns a monopoly on your survival. If they demand you work on a weekend, you have little leverage because you desperately need the paycheck. You are operating from a position of absolute dependency. But the day after you hit the crossover point, your job ceases to be a survival mechanism. It officially becomes a hobby that happens to pay you a salary. You are no longer showing up because you have to. You are showing up purely because you choose to. This is the ultimate evolution of the wealth-building journey. You transition from an employee trapped in a system to a sovereign individual who operates entirely on their own terms. The crossover point is the exact moment you financially reclaim the deed to your own life. For decades, the dominant societal script has told us that success requires us to plant our roots in the most expensive cities in the world. We are conditioned to believe that if we want to build a meaningful career, we have to endure a punishing daily commute, pay astronomically high rent, and accept an incredibly high cost of living as a necessary tax for being relevant. We tie our physical location directly to our earning potential, assuming that living in major metropolitan hubs is simply the price of admission for a good life. Because we accept this script without question, we trap ourselves in a vicious, exhausting cycle. We work incredibly hard to earn a high salary, but because our zip code demands massive mortgage payments, expensive groceries, and exorbitant property taxes, that high salary instantly evaporates. You can earn an elite six-figure income and still wake up every single morning feeling completely broke and totally overwhelmed. This geographic trap forces people to stay on the corporate treadmill far longer than necessary. When your basic survival in a major city costs you $5,000 or $6,000 a month, the mountain of wealth you need to accumulate just to feel secure becomes massive. You end up trading the most vibrant, healthy years of your life simply to maintain a mailing address that looks impressive to other people. But once you deeply understand the mathematics of financial independence, a profound realization hits you. Your physical location is not a permanent prison. It is actually one of the most powerful financial levers you possess. This realization introduces a life-changing concept known as geographic arbitrage. Geographic arbitrage is the strategic practice of earning money in a strong, high-value currency or holding strong, appreciating assets while physically living in an environment with a significantly lower cost of living. It is the ultimate hack for completely unhooking yourself from an expensive, soul-crushing system. Let us look at how this changes the equation. The math doesn't lie. If your crossover point requires you to generate $5,000 a month to maintain your lifestyle in a high-cost city, the 4% rule dictates that you need a massive portfolio of $1.5 million. Accumulating that much capital could easily require 2 straight decades of aggressive, highly stressful saving. But what if you refuse to play that game? What if you decided to unhook from the system entirely and move out of the major city? If you relocate to a quieter region, a smaller town, or even a beautiful, low-cost country, your monthly expenses could easily drop from $5,000 a month down to just $2,500 a month without sacrificing your quality of life. By simply changing your geography, you have instantly cut your target portfolio size exactly in half. Instead of needing $1.5 million to reach total time freedom, you now only need $750,000. With one single strategic decision about where you rest your head at night, you might have just mathematically bought back 10 entire years of your working life. Most people are terrified of pulling this lever because they are deeply entangled in the status game. They want the prestige of saying they live in a famous, expensive city. They desperately want the external validation that comes with an expensive zip code. But wealth is what you don't see. True wealth is having the absolute flexibility to pack your bags and go wherever the math serves your freedom best. This mindset shift changes everything about how you design your future. You realize that you do not have to grind away in a cubicle until you are 65 just to afford a costly house in a crowded suburb. You can use geographic arbitrage to drastically accelerate your timeline. You can let your money work for you in the strongest markets in the world, while you quietly enjoy your life in a place that values your time far more than your status. One of the greatest tragedies of the modern financial system is how deeply it forces us into playing the status game. As human beings, we are biologically wired to care about our place within our tribe. Thousands of years ago, your status in the group directly dictated your survival. But the modern economy has weaponized this primitive instinct. It has convinced us that our worth as human beings is directly tied to the brand of our car, the square footage of our home, and the logos on our clothing. Because we are terrified of falling behind in this invisible hierarchy, we engage in an endless, exhausting competition. We upgrade our lifestyles the exact second our paychecks increase. We finance luxury vehicles at terrible interest rates and take on massive mortgages that chain us to our desks for 30 years. We spend an enormous amount of our life energy buying things we do not actually care about simply to impress people we do not even really like. But here's the harsh truth about playing the status game. Absolutely nobody is looking at you the way you think they are. There is a famous financial paradox known as the man in the car. When you see someone driving a $200,000 sports car, you rarely look at the driver and think about how successful or impressive they are. Instead, you stare at the car and imagine how cool you would look if you were the one behind the wheel. We buy expensive things to earn admiration, but the people we want to admire us only use our expensive things as a mirror for their own desires. This is why we must remember that wealth is what you don't see. The luxury car is not wealth. It is simply proof that someone spent a massive amount of money, or worse, took on a massive amount of debt. True wealth is the unspent capital sitting quietly in index funds. True wealth is the freedom to turn off your phone on a Tuesday afternoon. True wealth is the absolute absence of financial panic. When you prioritize visible status over invisible wealth, you are voluntarily surrendering your freedom. The cost of this surrender is devastating. You are not just paying for these status symbols with dollars. You are paying for them with the finite, non-renewable hours of your existence. Every time you buy a luxury item you do not actually need, you are essentially telling your employer that you are willing to spend another 5 years locked in a cubicle. You are trading the absolute best, most vibrant years of your physical life for pieces of metal and fabric that will be totally obsolete in half a decade. This brings us to one of the most important concepts in life design, which is the idea of memory dividends. We talk endlessly about financial compounding, but we rarely discuss how our life experiences compound over time. When you take a month off to travel with your family in your 30s, you do not just get the joy of that single trip. You get to harvest the memory of that trip, laughing about it and sharing stories about it for the next 50 years. The earlier in life you invest in meaningful experiences, the longer those memory dividends pay out. If you blindly follow the societal script, you delay all of your gratification until the very end of your life. You hoard every single penny and refuse to pull back from work until you hit traditional retirement age. But the tragedy of this approach is that your physical capacity to enjoy your wealth steadily declines. $1 million at age 30 buys you a fundamentally different life than $1 million at age 80. We spend so much time terrified of running out of money that we completely forget to be terrified of running out of life. Time is the ultimate non-renewable resource in the universe. You can always rebuild a shattered portfolio, and you can always hustle to earn another $100,000. But no amount of money can ever buy back a lost decade. No amount of compound interest can restore the energy you had in your youth. The moment you finally step off the treadmill of the status game is the exact moment your life truly begins. You stop caring about the cars your neighbors drive. You stop feeling the need to explain your modest lifestyle to people who are secretly drowning in debt. You finally understand that the heaviest anchor holding you back isn't your income, it is your ego. And letting go of that ego is the cheapest, fastest way to buy back your freedom. When you zoom all the way out and look at the entire landscape of personal finance, it all boils down to one fundamental realization. We spend so much time obsessing over withdrawal rates, index fund allocations, and investment strategies that we often forget the actual point of the exercise. The goal was never to become the richest person in the graveyard. The goal is, and always has been, absolute autonomy. Money is not a scoreboard to prove your worth to strangers. Money is simply stored energy in future choices. Every single dollar you manage to save and invest is a tiny piece of your past labor that you are intentionally sending into the future. You are taking the sweat, the stress, and the hours you traded today, and you are converting them into a digital shield that will protect you tomorrow. The more of this stored energy you accumulate, the less you have to rely on the unpredictable whims of an employer or a volatile economy to survive. You are slowly but surely building an impenetrable fortress around your peace of mind. The traditional financial system wants you to believe that the ultimate flex is the mansion, the designer clothes, or the exotic vacation. They want you trapped on the endless treadmill of consumption because your desire to buy things is exactly what keeps the engine running. But when you understand the profound mathematics of compound interest, you realize that the system is selling you a lie. The real flex is freedom. The highest possible dividend money pays is the ability to wake up on a Tuesday morning and do whatever you want. Think about how completely your life changes when you finally secure this level of autonomy. You are no longer navigating the world from a place of deep-seated fear and scarcity. When your survival is guaranteed by your own invisible workforce, every decision you make comes from a place of abundance. You can choose to take a lower-paying job that helps your community. You can choose to spend an entire summer teaching your children how to read. You can choose to simply sit in your backyard and watch the clouds move without feeling a single ounce of guilt. This shift permanently changes the way work feels. Work transforms from a desperate, high-stakes obligation into a completely voluntary pursuit. You are no longer showing up out of sheer necessity. You are showing up because you actually want to contribute, or because you enjoy the challenge, or simply because it gives you a sense of purpose. And the exact moment the work stops serving your life, you have the absolute power to walk away without a second thought. That is what true leverage looks like. Achieving this state does not require a massive lottery win or a high-flying corporate career that destroys your health. It simply requires a fundamental shift in how you view your resources. It requires you to endure the brutal grind of the first $100,000. It requires you to front-load your investments until you hit that glorious Coast FI milestone. It requires you to patiently wait until you cross the exact mathematical threshold where your passive income outpaces your living expenses. Along the way, you have to ruthlessly reject the status game. You have to ignore the noise of a society that desperately wants you to look rich at the expense of actually being free. You have to be willing to drive the older car, live in the modest house, and maybe even utilize geographic arbitrage to massively accelerate your journey. You have to trade the illusion of visible wealth for the deeply comforting reality of invisible security. If this video opened your eyes or gave you a new perspective, hit that like button. Let me know in the comments what your ideal future actually looks like, and make sure to subscribe for more. Remember, wealth isn't just a number in a bank account. It's the freedom to design your own life.